Hi everybody, welcome back to The Real Deal with CS Lark. It's been a crazy, busy week. Sorry I haven't posted anything. Wanted to start back with the podcast, so we're on episode 4. This episode, I think I'm going to talk about something that I was actually talking to a friend about the other day, and it's about patriotism. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what is patriotism. And so I want to start off by saying that patriotism isn't what people tend to make it out to be. You can be patriotic and not be a bad person. Back in time, patriotism was the love of your country. And I think that that isn't a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. But I also think that people are kind of trying to make it into a bad thing. For example, right, if you have an American flag on your house, right, usually that indicates that somebody in your family is or was in the military. And that was like a symbol of patriotism that, like you stand with the military. Well, nowadays they're making that to be, oh, you are, this whatever. You just care about America. Well, as an American citizen, this is my country. Of course I care about America. I live here. I love this country. And I think in this episode, I want to take a deep dive into patriotism a little bit. Specifically, not so much the definition of patriotism, but I want to talk about patriotism in history. And the one that I want to talk about is what was patriotism in history. Okay? So you had the French and Indian War, you had the Revolutionary War, then the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and then the War on Terror. Patriotism, I want you to understand this, okay? Patriotism, again, is love of country. But it's also love of who each other is. For example, in the Revolutionary War, and this isn't taught in schools, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this episode, is that in the Revolutionary War, we weren't just fighting England because of the Stamp Act or the Tea Act or all of those taxes that they put on us. That wasn't why we were just fighting England. We were fighting England because of the fact that England was not allowing us to be a sovereign country. They weren't allowing us to be sovereign in the terms of that we could make our own decisions, that we could have our own laws, that we could worship God however we wanted to worship God. We had to follow their rules and their laws no matter what. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Ben Franklin said that the problem with England was that they were the mother country and we were the child. Slight paraphrase there. And so, yes, you hear the slogan in history, taxation without representation, but it was more than that. It was the fact that we didn't have a say in what King George wanted to do. We didn't have a say in that. So King George would have parliament sessions, right? And they would pass something and then he would sign it. But the colonists never got a chance to say, this isn't right for the 13 colonies. And if they did get that chance, they were berated, they were belittled, they were besmirched. They were basically made to say, okay, you are going to do this. We don't care what your free will is, what your choice is. So that's why we fought the Revolutionary War, was so that we could, number one, worship God however we wanted to. And number two, so that we could be a free country. Because back before the founding fathers came here, there was the Pilgrims. And there's a lot of revisionist history out there, and I want to correct the record, and I want to make the record straight, is that the Pilgrims did not come to America to kill Native Americans. That was not their reason. If you watch the movie Monumental by Kirk Cameron, you will actually see the reason they came over here was because King James was discriminating against them because they were Baptists, and he didn't like the Baptists. You will see that over and over and over and over, they had trials. They finally got here. Most of them were sick. Most of them died the first December that they were here. They had no idea how to till the ground, no idea how to work the fields. The Native Americans, like Squanto, like a lot of other Native Americans, taught them how to till this ground, how to work the soil. That's what Thanksgiving was about. Thanksgiving, the way we celebrate Thanksgiving today, that's not what Thanksgiving is about. It's not about turkeys or whatever. Thanksgiving was the day that they celebrated God for bringing them over here, for watching over them, for keeping them safe, and for giving them the Native Americans. It was collectively the Native Americans and the Pilgrims coming together, thanking God. Now, the Pilgrims, you know them as the Pilgrims, but back in the day, they were known as the Puritans. And the word Puritan, it was like a rebuke. And they wanted to purify the church. Okay? They wanted to purify the church of all of the falsities in the church, which would be like the, not the traditions, but the chanting and the slogans. They also wanted to purify the church in the sense that they wanted it to go back to God. They wanted it to go back to being a Christian church and being a church that celebrated God and celebrated the Bible and obeyed God and obeyed the Bible. And part of the problem was that there was other people that didn't want that. And so they came over here. And so they were the forefathers. And there's a monument actually in Plymouth, Massachusetts, called the National Forefathers Monument, or also the National Monument to the Forefathers. And it points you to where this country has gone wrong. I can actually show it to you maybe in an upcoming podcast episode, because I want to talk more about it. But I really highly recommend you go and see Kirk Cameron's Monumental. It is one of the best films I have seen. It is a very good film. So you had the patriotism in the Revolutionary War, where people loved this country so much they were willing to die for this country. Okay, that is what I want you to understand here. People loved this country so much that they were willing to die for it, all throughout history, no matter what war. The thing is, this country is the freest country on the face of the earth. You know, everybody out there is saying, white people, you're oppressors, and black people, you're oppressed, and minorities, you're oppressed, and this country is racist, and this country is we need to pay reparations. And let me tell you something. Okay, we have a stain on our country. Yes, we had slaves. Did you know Africa also had slaves? Did you know that amongst the African Americans, they were Africans at that point, but did you know when they were Africans, before they came over here, there was slave trade in Africa? The blacks did slave trades, and I'm not being racist. You can look this up in history. And the blacks brought the other blacks over to this country. So you want to talk about racism in this country? There was racism in the country they came from. There was racism in England. England stopped it. And guess what? The slaves were not freed on Juneteenth. The slaves were freed when the Emancipation Proclamation happened. The Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves. Why do you think after the Emancipation Proclamation happened, why do you think the slaves were escaping to the north? Why do you think the slaves fought in World War I and World War II? They weren't slaves at the time. They were free men. But if we are such a racist country, then why would we allow African Americans in our military? Because I'm just saying, just throwing it out there, because if a country is so racist, you wouldn't want minorities in your military. But we had minorities. Proven fact. Tuskegee Airmen. They fought in World War II. They were black. So it's because we saw a wrong and we righted that wrong. And then we allowed everybody, each other, we allowed each other to be patriotic, to have a love of this country. That is one of the most important things. So why do we stand up and why do we pledge our allegiance to the flag? Why do we sing the national anthem? We're not pledging our allegiance to the country before we are to God. We're citizens of this country. We should pledge our allegiance to this country because this is our home. This is everything that we have. This is our life, our freedom. I personally believe we still are a Christian nation. That's just my personal belief. Do we live as a Christian nation? No. But you know what? Our documents are founded on biblical Christianity. If we get back to our documents and we follow our documents and we follow the Word of God, we can turn this all around. I guess my point is, patriotism isn't a bad thing. You can be a patriotic and still love God. You can be a patriot and still be a Christian. Patriotism is the love of country. Do I love my country? Yes. Do I like what the government in my country is doing? No. And that's two separate things. That's two distinctions. America is the freest, most prosperous nation on the entire face of the earth. You go to China, go to Russia, go sit in one of their prisons, go get arrested in one. Not promoting getting arrested, just saying, go get arrested. You don't have rights. You don't have a fair trial over there. You just sit there and you just basically rot in prison. And you get beaten. And you starve. If you don't believe me, ask Brittany Griner. This country means something. This country is the freest country in the entire world. Why do you think millions of men and women fought for this country? Why do you think millions of men went over to World War II and died for this country and for other countries so that freedom could prevail in the world? Because this country is the greatest country. And being born here, I don't think we truly understand this. A lot of people who come over from socialist and communist countries actually understand just what I'm talking about. But when you're born here, we take everything for granted here. We take our freedom, our liberty to speak out, our liberty to own a firearm, our liberty to just step outside our house or our apartment and do whatever we please. That's not the way it is in other parts of the world. Other parts of the world, you don't have the right to protest. And if you do protest, you get thrown in prison. But in this country, you are protected. You can protest, not riot. Your right, your protection and your right to protest stops when you start rioting. But when you are protesting peacefully, you have the right to protest and you are protected. Because this country is the greatest country. And you know what makes it great? It's not necessarily our founding documents. While those do make it great. What makes it great is the people. The people make it great. We may disagree. You and I may disagree on politics. You may disagree on religion. But at the end of the day, we're all people. We all matter. I think if we stopped looking at the negativity and stopped being angry with one another and started looking at the good in people and being kind to people and being compassionate, I think that we would all benefit from that. Because we are one nation under God. One nation under God. And you and I, we need each other. We can't just push each other away and keep each other around. It's like we need each other. And right now, we need somebody in this country to stand up and be that uniter for this country. To say, okay, I disagree with you spiritually, I disagree with you politically, but let's come together and find out what we do agree with. We need a uniter. Who is that uniter going to be? I don't know. I'm not going to say who I think it should be. That's up to you. But what I can say is this. You live on the greatest country on the planet, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If you want to go out and you want to wave your American flag, by all means do it. If you want to go out and you want to have a barbecue outside your house, you by all means do it. And also likewise, on the flip side, if you want to trash America and you want to say America's racist, fine, go ahead. But don't demonize the rest of us who love this country for what this country is. This country has done more for millions of people who have immigrated here legally, than any other country. People who immigrate here illegally, they have the right to work. They can become citizens. When they become citizens, they can vote. They get health care. They don't necessarily get free stuff, but they get to be part of society. I had family who immigrated here through Ellis Island, became naturalized. So don't go talking to me that I don't know what this whole thing means, because my family knows. My family knows just what has gone on from the country they came from. And they know just what this country has done for them. Patriotism is not bad. Patriotism is amazing. It is good. It is beautiful. So I'm asking you, are you willing to be a patriot? Even if somebody throws the racism card at you, even if somebody says that you're a horrible person, are you willing to be a patriot? Because being a patriot, that is something you can do to make a difference. Don't let anyone take your patriotism away. See you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody.